Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Email me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com, with your pricing questions. Today, we're discussing an important first for Bethune that launched back in 2021. Previously, the DB25 Perpetual Calendar had been offered only in precious metal. This, the DB25 Perpetual Calendar in titanium, was the first use of Bethune's Grade 5 titanium on a DB25 Perpetual Calendar. So the watch is in Grade 5 titanium, 44 millimeters in diameter, 12.7 millimeters thick, and 51 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll zoom out, throw it on my wrist. In titanium, really just titanium and sapphire, it fits my wrist, but I wouldn't recommend this watch for wrists smaller than 16 centimeters circumference. The company recently re-released the 40 millimeter case with a titanium perpetual calendar in that size. So if you like this watch, but you think that it's a bit too big for your wrist, just reach out to me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com, and I can hook you up with the 40 millimeter version. So it is very light on the wrist. It's also fairly thin with a sloped bezel and a sub 13 millimeter thickness. It'll slide even under a dress cuff. Now you can see down the barrel, the definitive view here. I really don't have a lot of clearance on each side. The lugs aren't over the edge of my wrist, but as you can see from over the top, they are right out to the edge. And I always consider lug wrist overlap to be the no-go point for watch size. Now we've got a strap here that's olive green military style textile on the top. It's got a monotone stitch, folded edge. It's got a leather gusset sewn in to help prevent gouging. And then on the other side, you can see black calfskin. And we have a satinated and polished Bethune Grade 5 titanium buckle. The nice thing about Grade 5 tie is that, like all tie, it's hypoallergenic, so no problems there. If you have a nickel allergy and you don't like 904L steels, for example, this is a great alternative. But also, this is both lighter and more scratch resistant than 904L and 316 steel. You can see the case band matches the buckle. At Bethune, buckles match cases, so here we have a fairly standardized buckle. It's nothing exotic or prismatic or buttress-like. And then we have fixed lugs. The DB25s, which first came out in 2007, are the more approachable watches in the Bethune collection. If you don't want a space-themed watch, if you don't want something that looks like a lunar lander or out of this world, this is the way to go, as you get solid dials, round cases, and fixed lugs. You can see there's a little bit of sculpting, and we do have a little bit of evacuation of the lugs to create a more airy look, less solid, less blocky and brutal. And we also have the little bullet tips at the end of the lugs, the last remnant of the original 2002 first Bethune timepiece, the DB1 chronograph. These ogival or rocket tip or torpedo tip lug ends are the last vestige of that watch. Everything's in high polish, and because it's Grade 5 titanium, it tends to stay that way. Pusher adjusters for making changes to the calendar. You can see that the bezel has a slight vertical step outboard and then a domed profile. This one has a solid dial. That's one of the nice things about the DB25s. You don't have all the action on the dial side. A lot of folks don't want to have dial side drivetrains, mainspring barrels, escapements, balance bridges. So here we have a very classical rosette-style guilloche center with a chapter ring on a toroidal rehaut that doubles as your minutes and hours scale. We have a lovely silver metallic print on this metallic green base, and Bethune makes its own cases, movements, and dials, which means all this is done in-house, controlling the process for the sake of ensuring quality, but also allowing a handful of examples of each to be built. Suppliers want to hear hundreds or thousands. Bethune rarely makes more than 2 or 3 dozen of any given model in a given year, so being able to do those low volume runs of green dials with guilloche centers, for example, that's why Bethune controls the whole process and does it in-house. Now you can see the hands are leaf style, polished, and then there's a pronounced taper to the minute hand as well as to the hour hand. That's done on a miniature rolling pin. The guilloche here is the real kind, done on a rose lathe. This is not the stamped type. We have a radial date, we have the day, we have the month, we have a leap year indicator just below a moon phase that is 1/2 blackened and 1/2 white palladium. And so we have this moon phase that is quite literally spherical. You can see it towers proud of the dial, and that is a patented system, and it needs only one correction every 122 years. The perpetual calendar doesn't need to be touched, provided the watch keeps running until the year 2100. You can also see a blackened metallic base serving as sort of the black sky around that moon. Now turn it all over. And we have a manufactured caliper with 2 barrels, automatic winding, a 5-day power reserve, a 4 Hz beat rate, and a lot of proprietary patented tech. Everything that's blue is fired blue titanium. And then we have an enormous effective lever for this rotor. See the diameter of it? It's huge. That creates a lot of mechanical advantage for winding efficiency. The problem is being really cantilevered, these arms would otherwise have a tendency to maybe torque a little bit and come in contact with the bridges, and the mass come in contact with the base plate. So the solution to prevent that from happening, and also to avoid stressing the ball bearing at center, is that Denis Flageolet, the co-founder and lead watchmaker of de Bethune, created these little cantilever springs with jewels inset to reduce friction when contact does happen. And so this system, patented in 2006, makes the winding system as shock resistant as the balance mounting. Now let's talk about that. We have 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs on this balance bridge. That's called triple parachute, and it has 2 functions. 1, avoid breaking the balance staff pivots. 2, more rapidly center the balance staff pivots in their cup jewels after a shock. So not just for preservation, but also superior timekeeping after a shock. Get back to normal operation more rapidly. You can also see that there's a bit of a dogleg kink to the flat hairspring. That's because de Bethune has its own patented hairspring curve. It takes 2 pieces of hairspring material, bends them independently, clamps them together, gets the thin profile and shock resistance of a flat hairspring, but with the concentric breathing properties of an overcoil, so it's the best of both worlds. There's also a de Bethune designed silicon escape wheel for improving power reserve as well as efficiency overall and accuracy. And again, it beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour. So this movement, which has an extraordinary number of parts, well over 420 and 47 pivot jewels, it is tough, it is accurate, it is designed to be effectively a sports watch movement that just happens to be in a perpetual calendar dress watch. And while the finishing is rustic at first glance, it's actually done in a machine chic fashion. So the closer you get, the more you start seeing the traditional elements, like the mirrored anglage on the edge of the triple parachute steel spring for the balance bridge, and also elements like the black polishing of screws and the chamfering of their slots and circumference, the contrast between the satination and the media blasting of the barrel bridge. It's all there. And again, it is a dress watch, so though very sporty, it's water resistant to a standard dress watch. 30 meters. It is a very sophisticated watch inside and out, and in titanium, also a very durable daily use type of watch. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.